At my first call back in 1979 to Trinity Lutheran Church in Isle, Minnesota, I had an experience not dissimilar to what is described this morning in our gospel reading of Jesus walking on the water. You see, back then, in that place, I walked on water. I did. I walked on Mille Lacs Lake, which is a shallow lake in northern Minnesota, not dissimilar, actually, to the Sea of Galilee. It was an extraordinary experience, as you might well imagine. What? You don't believe me? Well, there was perhaps a slight difference from the account of Jesus walking on the water. For when I did it, it was below zero, and the water turned to ice was over a foot thick. But for Jesus, in our story this morning, the water was warm, it was wet, and it revealed Jesus. The story is well known to us from our Sunday school lessons. However, we may not like the lesson that it teaches. For after all, when we consider our circumstances, the water is deep, the storms are frequent, and trust is in short supply. So we set the stage. Just the day before the account this morning, just the day before, Jesus has fed the 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Now, the crowd may not well have appreciated the miracle that had transpired, but the disciples were certainly in on it. For as they broke the bread blessed by Jesus, it multiplied in their hands, and they were able to feed all, including those who were farthest away. The disciples knew that Jesus was not just an ordinary rabbi. In fact, they reflected on the previous miracle among several when Jesus stilled the storm. But before they could comprehend what had just transpired in the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus sent them on ahead by boat to Capernaum, while Jesus, for his part, went up on the mountainside by himself to pray. Now, that boat ride for the disciples from where they were to Capernaum was some 6 miles and should have taken only a few hours. However, it is recorded that as night fell, they were still well on the water, buffeted by a quick-moving storm that overtook them, forcing them to turn the bow of their boat into the storm to fight the wind. 9 hours after departure, they were still battling the storm. They were spent for all their efforts, losing hope of reaching their destination, perhaps even fearful that they might drown in the churning sea. And the lesson of focused faith begins.
Mac, it's okay.
Why are you doing this to me?
This isn't me.
You told me to come out here.
Mac, this is happening inside you. You're letting it consume you and you don't have to. Just take a deep breath and listen to my voice.
Don't look at it, Mac. Look here.
Don't think about the past. Don't think about the pain. Look at me. Everything is gonna be okay. Look at me. Trust me, none of this can hurt you. Just keep your eyes on me. Breathe. Good, Mac. I'm not going anywhere.
The lessons begin small enough in the beginning. Jesus tells the children that he loves them. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in his sight. And then, as the children grow, they observe racism. Jesus teaches them to love parents and to honor authority. And then as they grow, they see fighting and riots. Jesus promises to provide and to care for them. And then they see street beggars and the homeless. And they begin to doubt. Is it any wonder then, as adults, when we face the serious issues of life, loss of income, loss of companions, loss of health, loss of life, is it any wonder that faith wobbles and doubts flourish? You see, we've been disappointed too many times, seen too much suffering, endured too much pain. Too often, we feel like our boat is taking on water and we are drowning. Into our storms comes Jesus, walking miraculously into our troubled lives. Now, it's a little scary. It's a little scary to think that he knows all our sordid facts, all our bad decisions, all the heart-rending details of our lives. Yet Jesus is undeterred. The disciples, they cry out, "It's a ghost!" And Jesus immediately calms their fears. "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Sidebar. When Jesus says to the disciples, "It is I," translated from the Greek, ego eimi, he's actually using the proper name of God given to Moses at the burning bush. For you see, ego eimi is literally translated, I am. Jesus identifies himself as Yahweh to the disciples. And that, along with walking on the water, had to make the hair on their arms stand up. It did more than that for Peter. He is overcome by the moment, with the wind howling, water becoming solid, and Jesus taking the divine name. He does something that no sane person would do. He said, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." And the lesson of focused faith takes on new urgency.
Now, let's get you out of this boat.
What?
You heard me.
This is not funny.
I'm not joking. You can do this.
I can't.
Not on your own, you can't.
I was thinking.
No, Mac. You're imagining a future without me, and that future does not exist. I promise to go with you always, right? And right here. Come on.
Dare we trust Jesus when he invites us to come? Max Lucado says, faith is a desperate dive out of the sinking boat of human effort and a prayer that God will be there to pull us out of the water. We don't like it. We don't like it any more than Mac Phillips does in these clips shown to you this morning from the shack. Why is that? We love God and respect His Word. We celebrate the forgiveness of sins that He lavishes upon us. But we also like to be in control, do we not? Faith is yielding control from ourselves to Jesus. Did you hear that? Faith is yielding control from ourselves to Jesus. Since focused faith is a hard lesson to learn, God puts hard lessons into our lives. Never to punish, always to build faith. So Jesus invites us to come and walk on the water. But it's scary. It's scary. We would rather trust our doctor, our lawyer, our financial planner. So we pray. We pray with one eye open, one eye to Jesus and one eye to them. Focused faith compels us to look with both eyes firmly fixed on Jesus. Abraham Lincoln captured this sentiment. He wrote, "I have been driven many times upon my knees by the overwhelming conviction that I had nowhere else to go." Walking on water, it is not normal. We far prefer walking by sight rather than walking by faith. It's little wonder that Peter began to sink after his few faltering steps on the water. Too often, threatening circumstances in life grab our attention to control and to overwhelm us. And, like Peter, we doubt and sink. The message of the gospel is not that we are such successful water walkers. No one's faith is perfect, and everyone's faith has doubts on occasion. The message of the gospel is that Jesus is there. He is there to reach out and to pick us up. He is there when we cry out, "Lord, save me." That cry, it was heard in eternity, long before Peter uttered it. It has been spoken by countless people down through the ages when they had nowhere else to go. So God heard that cry, and He reached down, placing His Son into our midst, and Jesus rescued us. But that rescue, like walking on water, was not normal. For it was not by force of arms or strength of alliance, but rather by a Roman cross and a broken body. But it was every bit as decisive as was Peter's rescue from drowning. And it is every bit as available today as it was to him. Jesus is at the ready to reach down, to pull us up, and to rescue. To be sure, He may well do that dramatically through a successful surgery, a surprise encounter, an unexpected bequest. But more often than not, He does it quietly, through a gracious word of forgiveness, a simple meal of bread and wine, a compassionate word by a friend. And He is at the ready to do that for you today. If you find yourself in such a place with storms gathering about you, heed his invitation to come. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest.
Here we go.
Now what? Just stop walking.
Yeah, okay.
Last week, my daughter jumped off a cliff. Yes, she is still around to talk about it. She did it by paragliding while on a recent trip. Now, when she first saw the cliff, she said, "I cannot do that," and she refused. But then, upon seeing others run toward the cliff and then take to the air, she mustered the courage to try it. And it was, in her words, exhilarating. Walking by faith, with eyes firmly focused on Jesus, has that same potential. As we step out of our comfort zone and rely on Him, He proves Himself faithful to His word and promise. And soon that which is traumatizing becomes a walk on the water as we practice focused faith. We pay troubling circumstances little heed. We hear Jesus' words to take courage and don't be afraid. We remember how He has saved us in the past. And we pray with both eyes firmly fixed on Jesus. I call it focused faith.